Welcome to Smart Finance 360, the podcast where money matters meet innovative thinking. Every week, we dive deep into the world of finance, exploring trends, debunking myths, and bringing you the latest insights from industry experts. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a financial newbie, or somewhere in between, this is your go-to source for becoming financially savvy. All right, well, another episode of our podcast. We got the CEO of UMortgage, Anthony Casa. I'm really excited to have him here today. I want to talk a lot about not just entrepreneurial stuff of building a mortgage company, but also just consumers as well, to be able to teach them about kind of why we do mortgages and, how can we help consumers understand a little bit more about mortgages, because I think education is key. So for me, my first question for you, Anthony, obviously, you are the CEO of UMortgage. How did you even get into mortgages? Because mortgages, I feel like everyone I know, we didn't really grow up and be like, I want to be the CEO of a mortgage company, or I want to work in mortgages. It's always just most interesting stories. So how was yours kind of like come to fruition?
Crazy story. It's an absolutely crazy story. This is a great one. So I dropped out of school when I was in the 8th grade. So never got a high school diploma, no GED,
Really?
no nothing. You didn't know this?
No.
Oh my goodness, that's
I
great.
thought you at least skated by.
No, I never. So I dropped out of school in the 8th grade. My dad had a stroke, so we didn't have we didn't have a lot of money. We were poor. So like my dad was a single income in our household. So my mom's I was already working in a restaurant as like a dishwasher. But my mom's initial thought was like, okay, well, we're going to go sign you out of school and you're going to work full time and support the family. And that's what happened. So I thought at that point in my life, I was 13 and I'm literally working full time in a restaurant. And that's what I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. I thought I was going to run restaurants and build restaurants. And that's what I was going to do. Luckily, we had a customer who would come in every single day on his way home from work. He worked at a mortgage company and he would talk to me about the mortgage business. He was running sales at a mortgage company. And we built a really good relationship. We started working out together in the mornings. And he thought I was like in my 20s. And I was 17. And he was just like, man, he's like, with your work ethic, dude, he's like, you literally work 14 hours in this restaurant. You work out with me in the morning. He's like, with your work ethic, you'd make $1 million in the mortgage industry. And for a year, I was just like, man, that sounds really good. So he got me a job interview, and like we know the mortgage industry today, but this was pre-NMLS. This is 2003. There's no rules. It's the wild, wild west.
It is the wild, wild west.
Truly the wild, wild west. So I go in, and I thought it was going to be like an interview. I was like, I sweat. I didn't think I was going to even get the job. So one thing leads to another. I get the job, and what I would do, because I had no formal education, but I'd been running a restaurant for a couple of years now, so I knew how to run a business. I understood all the concepts. But I had no idea about finance at all. So what I would do is I found out who the number one sales guy was. And I literally, from like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., I just walked by his desk. I literally would listen to everything the guy said. And then the minute everybody left for the day, I would start calling all my leads. And I would regurgitate just all the stuff he said. It didn't even probably make sense. Like, honestly, it would be like the equivalent of like learning Spanish by listening to somebody speak Spanish, but the person isn't teaching you how to speak Spanish. So you're just loan to value. Okay. Like, sir, you have a bad loan to value. What does that mean? Like, no, I didn't know anything, but but I worked really hard. And that was the one thing, like from working in the restaurant, I just gotten used to like working 14-hour days. Yeah. So I applied that to the mortgage industry. In my first year, I made $145,000. And I'm like,
this is 17, 18 years old?
18 years old. 18 years old.
Imagine 18-year-old making that much money.
I didn't even have a car. My dad drove me to work every day. Like, I didn't even have a bank account. Like, it was insane. So after a year, I got recruited to a much bigger company who had found out that, I was becoming a top salesperson. And I went there. And that's really when I kind of exploded, because when I went to that company, they had basically put me on the lending tree, like multi-million-dollar desk, which was like all of the biggest loan amounts. And I took over. Like, I became the number one guy there. And all I would get would be $2, $3, $4, $5 million loan amounts. Like, I was dealing with guys that were CEOs.
High net worth at that point.
I'm like 19 years old. And
you had to learn quick.
I learned quick, but I learned how. But here's the thing is, because of my years in the restaurant business, I knew how to serve people. I knew how to communicate with people. Customer service was like in my blood.
I love that you say that about I see some of the, even in you mortgage in the company of the loan officers, some of the best loan officers come from the restaurant business. I feel like you guys learn urgency there. You obviously learn customer service, and you really correlate a lot from just being in the restaurant business, working your butt off 14, 15-hour days. You probably did everything too. You probably weren't just out there serving people. You're probably doing dishes, doing whatever it could to keep it afloat. And you see that it correlated instantly into what you do now with mortgages.
100%.
I just find that so interesting that you could be in a completely different industry, but you can really apply what you learned in that other industry in a totally separate industry.
It's a structure. And it's so funny because I was talking to, there's a guy that's on our team that has been working with me since I was 13 in the restaurant. And he's been with me this whole time, 20 plus years. So we were talking about yesterday. I was like, the thing that the restaurant industry taught me is like, if you weren't busy, you either found work or you went home. And it wasn't like you got like hours to sit around. It was like if you had 5 minutes without work to do, they were getting you to do work. And the things that they would get you to do when it was slow were the things nobody wanted to do. Clean the line behind the greasing. Like
you're on your knees, clean the baseboards.
The most disgusting. Clean the toilet. Like it was the most disgusting stuff.
You'd rather go out
ever.
on the street and say, "Come in and eat some food, please."
100%. So like we had such a high level of anticipation of like, oh wow, like it's slow today. Let's just get the worst stuff out of the way first. Let's clean and like now in the business world, the reason why I say that makes sense is like a lot of people, they're like, well, I did my job. Mm-hmm. Like when people lose their jobs, they're very like, oh, I don't know why I lost my job. Well, what was going on? Well, it was very slow at work. I'm like, so wait, you don't know why you lost your job? You weren't doing anything at work? Well, I just thought maybe I was going to get busy. I'm like, okay, well, guess what? Yeah. Same thing goes to the restaurant. You know what happens in the restaurant? It's slow. Get your ass on your knees. Clean the freaking greaser. Clean this. You think I wanted to do that?
Yeah.
But it was either, if I want to make my hourly wage at that point, I had to stay busy. Otherwise, they were going to send me.
Figure it out.
I had to figure it out.
Home. You want to get paid.
And I anticipate it. So like, again, these are things that like they are transferable. All the knowledge that we learned then in that business, it's transferable to this business. You can anticipate it all.
Yeah, I mean that right there is a phenomenal example of just that. When you learn at a young age that you can go out and create business, for you is just creating that extra hour of work. You correlate that in this mortgage company. Now you're talking to guys that make 5, 6, 10, whatever $1 million a year. Where are you at that point? You're 19, 20 years old. How long were you there? Like, how did that get, like, what was your next step in your journey at that point? I feel like you're talking to 5 people who make $5, $10 million a year. You're kind of at the very top, I would say, of the chain in the loan officer, industry. What kind of happened there at that point?
I very quickly went to like leading people. So like I would say like my first couple of years in the mortgage industry, I was like, I mean, the money was so unbelievable. Coming from no money, even when I was in the restaurant business, like the money I made, I would work so hard and make like $700 a week.
Yeah.
It was not great. So like to me, we were making so much money. So I was really enjoying just being a salesperson. I enjoyed the hustle. I enjoyed the grind and I enjoyed the benefits and I had a great life. But, I would say over a very short period of time, I realized that like I put my 10,000 hours in really quickly. I was working 7 days a week, like every day and enjoying it. So I started to realize that all the salespeople that were much older than me started to gravitate towards me. Like my former partner was, in the mortgage business for 3 years before me. He was, several years older than me, but, he sat next to me and like, he went from like looking at me as like, who's this young punk when I started to like, geez, he's really
watching you. He's seeing the work ethic. He's seeing you putting in the calls.
100%.
Immediately elevating everyone else.
Yes.
Just working. And you've been poor. You know what it feels to be poor. And a lot of people that have been poor don't ever want to be poor ever again. Yes. They don't ever want to feel that feeling ever again. So they'll do whatever it takes.
That's right.
And that's practically what you were doing at that point.
100%. And basically, I started to lead salespeople, and then eventually I was leading dozens of salespeople. And
21,
I was like, I would say probably like 21, 22 at the very latest. So, over time, like I started to really build myself into that world. Now, then the financial crisis happens, and at that point, I didn't like. You don't know what you don't know. So like, it all like in retrospect, as hard as I worked, it all came easy. because every hour I put in, there was a direct return on the hour. And while I worked really, really hard, I made a lot of money in looking back in a very easy way.
Yeah.
So when the financial crisis happened, it all went away. Like all the mortgage companies went away. I mean, like the biggest financial institutions all went away. Gone. You couldn't close a loan. So, it just so happened at that time I really started to start my family, and I was a lot of like self-reflection. I didn't know if the mortgage industry was going to even be there for me.
Yeah.
A lot of regulation was coming in. It was very scary. Like, am I even going to be able to be a loan officer? Like, I don't have a college education. Like, what's this new world going to look like? So luckily on the other side of it, it did start to stabilize. Things started to normalize. And, I started a mortgage brokerage, and, that next chapter of my life was like a really eye-opening kind of time. And it's kind of like where my core values that we have today developed is, I look back at pre-crisis and I said, why did that happen? Well, we focused on transactions. We didn't focus on people. We cared about making money, and we cared about closing. It didn't matter if they qualified. It didn't matter if it was a no income, no asset. Like, nobody really cared. It's embarrassing to look back at, but in coming out of the financial crisis, it was like, okay, we're going to focus on relationships, not transactions. We're going to focus on experience. We're going to focus on taking care of every situation. When we built Garden State Home Loans, we built it as a relationship-focused company focused on the consumer. And, in that business, we eventually became number one, but it felt like we just didn't know what we were doing. We just kind of were like, we were building it, we were learning. It was painful to be a mortgage broker from 2011, 2015. There was no,
those were not training, the 4 years. There's no support. There's
all the banks treat like crap.
Yeah, there's
number one company was like, we all laugh at today. The number one lender in this space at that point wouldn't even talk to you. Like they had cases. Like you had to talk through these chats, and like it was the worst place. Oh, we're still breaking I guess like those years were the years that the reputation of the channel, we're still trying to break that, because it's turned around and it's massively better. It's the best thing for the consumer. But, I think my biggest learning lessons over these years has been like, time is so long, but when you're in it, it feels like you're missing out. It feels like, I got to accomplish this now, or I'm never going to be able to accomplish it. I got to make this money now, or I'm never going to do it. I got to buy this house now, or I'm never going to do it. But in retrospect, it's like, man, like you really do have time. Like, you got to take everything for what it is and really value. Like I look back at those years of Garden State Home Loans, and I value the time I spent with all the employees and the relationships. Like to this day, like I'm so
great relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and you're a lot, I feel like back then you're a lot more in the trenches.
Yes.
All the time.
100%.
And the high level stuff that you do as far as like the visionary things that are, trying to be 10 steps ahead of the game. I'm not quite sure you had that at that point, but also at that point too, is you're building, when you're building so fast, what comes with high growth is also high success, but at a fast rate. So it's really hard at the time to really take a step back and decide what's more important for this company next quarter, or 3 quarters from now, or next year, compared to what I'm doing right now. And I see a lot of, brokers or different companies, or even from an entrepreneurial standpoint, just a small company, I see the CEO or the top person doing things probably a CEO shouldn't be doing it that day. So I want to talk to you about the difference between Garden State Home Loan, Anthony, and U Mortgage, Anthony, because I feel like for you now, you are very into the high level things. You're always looking 10, 20, 30 steps ahead. How does your days change when your outlook is that, in that way of just like you're looking ahead, and how do you avoid what's hitting in front of you? Like entrepreneurs, I think their number one problem right now, especially with the smaller businesses, is that they are so distracted with what's going on right now that they don't even focus on what's, ahead. So how do you stay above there in the high level thinking and don't get stuck in the mud, I would say?
Yeah, I think a lot of that was learned at Garden State Home Loans, because I was so in the trenches and I was never looking too far ahead, that when we would hit these points where we weren't prepared for them, like when market cycles would change, specifically 2016 is a prime example of like when after that election, rates went through the roof. We weren't prepared. our volume went through the floor. It was not good. And looking back, that's what's prepared me to be the CEO of today is like, why we could see that coming. Like when rates are high, when rates are low, eventually they're going to go high. Like that's the way it goes. Now I come into this situation and I sit there and say, okay, like the way this market works is when rates are high, these are the things that we need to be doing as a company. We need to be recruiting. We need to be growing because growing headcount is what happens when rates are high. When rates are low, that's when we need to be getting loans because that's when the good times are rolling.
Yep.
So you're in a situation where if you understand the components of the market, you can prepare for what's coming. So for these last couple of years, it's been recruit. Mm-hmm. Now we've already started 6 months ago, we really started saying, okay, hey, this is going to end soon. It's going to happen. How are we going to get prepared for it? So whether it's your CRM, whatever the things are that we start working on strategy wise, but part of that process, and you have some familiarity with this, is like, when things aren't good, the reason why you make a lot of changes is you're preparing for when things are good.
Yes.
So it's like we turned over a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like people look, oh, Anthony, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's firing operations leaders. Like this guy's erratic. Yeah. It's like, no, guys, I'm not worried about right now. We're doing 500, 600, 700 loans a month. That's nothing. I'm preparing for 3,000 a month. Yeah. So if I know the ops person doesn't have the chops for it, and the only way to know is to put them in the role and have a conversation with them and see, hey, where's your strategy at? Are they good? Do they understand headcount?
They're stressed right now. You're going to be very obvious that, when things are actually busy, they're...
Oh, yeah. Because to your point, it's like, are they thinking up here?
Yeah.
Or are they thinking down in the weeds? And there's nothing wrong with it, but it's my job to find the right person. So when the light switch goes on, we're prepared for it. So, again, going back to the in the moment, the zoom in, zoom out stuff, it's like when it's in the moment, people will look at you and be like, man, like he's making some really bad decisions. Like, guys, when you zoom out and we look backwards, they're going to be like, oh man, thank goodness we made that decision. Thank goodness we had a person. Yeah. So it's
zooming out sometimes gives you so much more perspective on what's going on. It's kind of the same thing as, sometimes just leaving the whole situation and going on a walk can help you clear your mind and think about, what's going on, and then you can make better decisions. The same thing when you're running your business. You got to zoom out a little bit, see what's going on overall, and then you can zoom back in, and it's much better. One thing I like that you said about preparing, your model was so interesting to me, is that you built pretty much everything first before bringing loan officers in. I mean, you had operations, you had capital markets, you had marketing, you had the most robust IT team I've ever seen. You had everything there, HR, everything there built first before you actually even brought in your big produced loan officers. Tell me how that's a lot of faith, by the way, to do that. I mean, probably a lot of money to invest as well. What was your thought process here instead of doing what everyone else does where it kind of gradually grows and then it's just, a snowball effect? You did the whole thing. If I build it, they will come. Yeah. Tell me kind of your thoughts there. I mean, that's scary.
Scary. It's super scary. So think about this, like the timing of this. And this is where it goes to like the preparing. We started to really build this thing in 2020, second half of 2020, like fourth quarter of 2020. So like we're in the middle of greatest refinance boom in the history of the world. And any logical human being would be like, let's get loans.
It's true. It's the easiest thing to pick up, quick money, right?
That's true. But we just got started. I was like, we already missed this market. If I try to go get loans right now and get loan officers, all I'm doing is being reactive, and we won't have built anything. So our whole thought process was like, hey, we're going to spend 2021. We know it's going to be a great refi year, and we know we're not going to get a lot of the rewards. But on the other side of 2021, we felt very confident rates were going to skyrocket. I didn't know how much, but we thought they were. So we want to be prepared to recruit loan officers when they skyrocketed. When rates are low, it's impossible to recruit loan officers.
Yeah, they're too busy.
Too busy. And when rates are high, they're ready. Yes, they're not busy. So
unless they worked in the restaurant business.
Unless they worked in the restaurant business, they're finding other shit to do. But for us, we spent that year. We just said, hey, we're going to spend the whole year. We're going to get marketing dialed in. We're going to get everything dialed in, and then once the rates go up, we're going to go recruit like crazy. And I'm talking about this whole 2022. 2021, the whole year, I would go up to our guy who's Austin, who's our capital markets guy, and be like, oh, what'd the Fed say? Rates going up? Oh, no, not yet. And every day I was like, oh my God, I'm spending all this money. I was like, when are rates going to go up? When are rates going to go up? Because we're ready to recruit. And the minute that they went up, it was off to the races. I mean, 2022, we went from, $300 million in 2021 to nearly $1 billion in 2022. We added, 160 loan officers that year. And
that's absurd to think, because normally it comes in cycles. You go from 100 to 150 million to 200, 250 million. It's kind of, you went from nothing to overnight, pretty much top 3, top 4 wholesale lenders in America.
Yeah.
Out of the gate. So with that piece for entrepreneurs as well, a lot of pain comes with that.
I have a lot of pain, a lot of patience. Patience is key.
So with patience on these entrepreneurs, a thing I like that you always said for me, because it has at times when you're growing very quickly, it's kind of embrace the suck. Embrace that, hey, look, this is hard. If it wasn't hard, if it was easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's super hard, that's why I think the mindset for an entrepreneur is like, look, nobody does this because it's hard.
Yeah.
So if you change your mindset and you have this positive attitude that, hey, look, this is the journey, and a lot of times you end up enjoying the journey.
Yeah.
And so it's been really enjoyable, but it has been crazy to see the pain points of growing so fast. When you're going not low level, but when you're going from a high level, mid level, and you're kind of, on the low level stuff as far as boots on the ground, how the business is running, how do you handle when things are running a million miles an hour?
Well, I think I've had my own learning lessons on this, because this is the first time I built something at scale like this. So I've had my own learning lessons, because going back to the Anthony in the restaurant, is like when you aren't busy, go find work. What I've learned is, like, just because Anthony's not busy doesn't mean everybody else isn't busy. So, like, and me going to find work while everybody else is busy can be a problem. Okay. I can break a lot of shit.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I learned. I learned my lesson of saying, hey, listen, you're head of marketing, you're head of ops, you're head of this, like, they're all working their butts off because the business is growing crazily. And every time you come in with a brilliant idea, with this big idea, and you don't bring new people with that brilliant idea to do it, you're gonna break your stuff. So I've learned I have to, when you have a vision and you set goals and you put the plan forward, you just got to let it work. You got to commit to it. And over time you can add stuff. But when you're not, just because, you have more time, now it's like, spend more time recruiting, spend more time doing the things that you can control that's not going to negatively impact the business. So that was my own learning lesson. I had to go through that myself. But at the same time, one of the things that, like, is a thing is, like, when you're in a fast paced growing environment, I have 150 shareholders that are my partners, and, they are vested, you know what I mean? And, like, there's a difference when somebody's your employee and they're your partner. Is your employees, like, our salespeople, if they're doing good and they're closing deals, they're happy. But that same person that's doing deals and closing deals and is an investor, he's happy, but what's going on with the shares? Like, what's going on with stock? Like, how we growing? Like, Anthony, man, what are you doing? So
helps them take a step back too and be like, oh, I need the whole picture for a second here.
Yes.
And then zoom back on what I'm doing. It helps them evaluate themselves as well. And, it really, that's a phenomenal point you made there.
Yeah. And listen, it's helped me understand the importance of communication. Of like they care about how we're growing, what we're doing to get ready for the next market. So, we've learned that we got to be better at communication. We have to understand that, like, everybody, when your investors are vested, it's a reflection of something you're missing for your team members too. Because what happens is, when your investors are coming at you and saying, hey, I don't know what's going on. It's like, well, if they don't know what's going on, your team members don't know what's going on. That means you're not explaining the vision well enough. So that's like, okay, we got to get focused on communicating our vision better, because we need everybody on the same page.
Yes, and that's the one thing, is I love that you guys have really, what drew me to the company is obviously the core values. The core values are incredible, and the vision's great. Tell us a little bit about the vision of U Mortgage, not only just for loan officers that want to join your company or employees, but also for consumers. How important that is to you and to our company and for consumers.
Yeah, I think I think there's two pieces of it. I think, like, I kind of look at our model is, we're trying to be little government. So, like, if you think of the mortgage industry is like, the federal government is the mortgage company, the corporate, okay? And there's a lot of mortgage companies out there that have big government, okay? They got some really big government, okay?
Yeah.
And that means that the taxes are high. I mean, the margins are high and the rates the consumer is getting are high because they run a very heavy ship. And our whole idea is like, hey, we want to be small government. We want to shift those economics to the local level, meaning we want the consumer to get the best deal. We want our loan officers to have the resources locally. And we want them to be entrepreneurial. We don't want them to just be employees. We want them to be more entrepreneurial. So I think the vision for us has always been we want a platform that allows them to be entrepreneurial while taking all of the nonsense, the HR, the compliance, all the things that bog you down in the business.
You can plug and play.
Yes, make it plug and play. And then, wrap a community around it, an internal community of people that are aligned around helping and supporting each other. And that's really kind of the secret sauce is like, today we had our daily sales huddle. We have a daily sales huddle every day.
Yeah, over 100 people.
100 people on this
out of the gate. I didn't even know what it ended up being at the end, but just waiting in the waiting room was over 100
on a Friday.
Yeah.
Okay, like end of the week,
noon at lunch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bingo. It's like 100 people.
Yeah.
I'm not on it. I have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
One of our sales guys is leading it. There's 100 plus of our other sales guys on it. And why are they on it? People, they don't have to. So the only reason they're on is there's some value there. There's some relevance there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all done within the community. The salespeople decide, hey, what's relevant? What do we want to talk about? Then we put on the daily sales huddle as a topic to focus on. So, you create this community where you have alignment, like you said, around these values. And, you make sure you keep any bad apples out of it that don't have alignment. And, over time, what you find is like, it's going to grow because people want to be part of something.
It has. And that's where I think when you have the good vibes in those meetings, you see these loan officers put it to practice, and the consumers are the ones who win in this. So, Anthony, I appreciate your time here. I mean, this was awesome. It's a privilege for you being in our podcast studio. I can't believe you're here. You're crushing it. If anyone is interested in U-Mortgage, please reach out to Anthony Casa and his great team. And if you're a consumer that's looking for a loan at U-Mortgage, how many states are we licensed in?
We're licensed in every state except for New York and Massachusetts. We're working on those, and you can go to umortgage.com and find a local loan originator in your community right on our website.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Anthony.
Thank you.
You're the man.
Appreciate you.